In the small town of Blackwood, there lived a legendary figure known only as Smokin Joe. He was a mysterious and formidable man, with a reputation that struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest outlaws. Smokin Joe was known for his unorthodox fighting style, which involved flipping his flaming middle finger at his enemies. Somehow, this strange gesture seemed to actually hurt them, leaving them writhing in pain as they fled from his wrath. But behind this fearsome facade, there lay a tragic tale that haunted Smokin Joe every waking moment. Years ago, he had been a different man, happy, content, and deeply in love with his wife and young child. But one fateful night, tragedy struck when a ruthless outlaw, wearing a velvet cloak, the color of dried blood, burst into their home. In a cruel twist of fate, Smokin Joe's family was torn from him, leaving him broken and consumed with a thirst for vengeance. Since that day, Smokin Joe had wandered the land, searching for the outlaw who had destroyed his life. His once kind and gentle nature had been replaced by a cold and ruthless determination to mete out justice to those who crossed his path. The town of Blackwood whispered of his arrival, knowing that trouble was sure to follow in his wake. As Smokin Joe rode into town on his trusty steed, the townsfolk watched in fearful anticipation. His eyes burned with a righteous fury, his jaw set in a grim line as he surveyed the dusty streets. The air crackled with tension as the outlaw gangs who had taken root in Blackwood felt the weight of his gaze upon them. It wasn't long before the outlaw in the velvet cloak caught wind of Smokin Joe's presence. A vicious smile twisted his lips as he plotted his next move, knowing that the legendary gunslinger would stop at nothing to avenge his family. He sent his lackeys to provoke Smokin Joe, hoping to goad him into a confrontation that would end in bloodshed. But Smokin Joe was not so easily lured into a trap. He moved with a deadly grace, his flaming middle finger at the ready as he faced down his enemies. The outlaws were no match for his skill and determination, falling before him like wheat before the scythe. As the dust settled and the last of the outlaw gangs lay defeated at his feet, Smokin Joe turned his gaze to the man he sought the most, the outlaw in the velvet cloak. Their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills, each knowing that only one would walk away from this showdown alive. The outlaw drew his gun with a sneer, his fingers twitching with anticipation. But Smokin Joe was faster, his legendary reflexes honed by years of fighting and loss. With a quick flick of his wrist, he sent his flaming middle finger arcing through the air, striking the outlaw in the chest with deadly accuracy. The outlaw staggered back, a look of shock and disbelief on his face as he crumpled to the ground. Smokin Joe stood over him, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction as he finally saw justice served for his wife and child. The townsfolk watched in awe as he rode out of Blackwood, a legend reborn in fire and blood. And so, the tale of Smokin Joe passed into legend, a cautionary tale for those who dared to cross the line between good and evil. His flaming middle finger became a symbol of justice and retribution, a warning to all who would dare to defy the law in the wild and lawless lands of the West.